They're going to bring it up. How many panelists are here that of yours?
All right, so we seem to be live.
Yes, you are live. You are live.
Yes, we are live. So let's just say welcome. Welcome to the end of, well, we're almost at the end of the day, right? Welcome to our Human Trafficking Impact in the Caribbean Forum. This is a very important topic, and we wanted to make sure to just get some experts to bring you some awareness. We want to let you know that the human trafficking and migrant smuggling industry is quickly becoming one of the fastest growing industries in the region. So it is important for us to talk about this, to bring awareness, etc. We have several amazing panelists on this afternoon. We have a few that's not going to be able to make it, but we do appreciate those that can. We know it's in the middle of a work day. Let me introduce myself. My name is Donna Morton Morgan, and I am the president of Caribbean American Diaspora Alliance and Women of Culture Incorporated. I'm in the Orlando, Florida area. So with that said, I'm going to just start out with Dr. Justin Pierre. And Dr. Pierre, if you can just give us a snippet on your background before you tell us. And this forum really is, again, like Dr. Nelson always says, it's for solution, right? So we're not just here to talk, we're here to find out cause and effect and also solution. So at the end of the day, we should be going some type of remedy for solution. So with that being said, Dr. Justine Pierre, just give us a snippet about who you are, your role in this work, and you can go right ahead into your presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here today, and it's a pleasure for you to give me this opportunity to speak on this important topic. So just to tell you a bit who I am, as I said, my name is Justin Pierre. I'm an ILO-trained migration consultant. I'm specialized in the field of research, and we have been conducting. I'm also the director of a company by the name of Don Pierre Barnett and Company Canada Limited. But most importantly, our firm has one of the largest database on what you call a data and information portal on Black people. So we try to collect data on Black people in about 80 countries based on postal codes, zip codes, nationality, profession, etc. So we have been in the business of the history or the movement of people, the geography of human beings. And as a result, we were fortunate to conduct some of the largest migration and human trafficking studies in the Caribbean region. And we did work for 2016 to 2020. We have conducted about 11 similar studies from the CARICOM human trafficking studies to the 2020 human trafficking to the 2020 human trafficking roots in out of Venezuela. So this is just basically what I do, and I've been very interested in learning more about the subject. Okay, so before in regard to my presentation, I will just sort of share a presentation that I did on April the 26th with all of the embassies in the region. The presentation was given to the Canada, to all the embassies in the region, including the Canadian embassies and most of the European Union, the British embassies and most of the other embassies. And also that presentation on May the 4th, we presented our case, our findings, our research to the US State Department. So I will just quickly go over what is taking place in the Caribbean region. So we realized that in the Caribbean, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of challenges in the Caribbean region because the whole issue of smuggling, human trafficking, it is becoming more and more vibrant because the demand for human trafficking, the demand is on the increase. One of the greatest challenges we have is that because of where we live in the region. We live in the region, the Caribbean that has 8% of the world's population, but about 33% of all crime. The Caribbean itself has about, as I said, about 1 million square miles. There's no central government that governs the Caribbean. We have the French governments, we have the British, we have the Spanish, we have the Dutch government. We have over 25 different languages in the Caribbean, over 7,000 islands. We have weak human trafficking legislation. The whole issue of sex tourism is very big in the Caribbean. Over 83 brothels. In fact, up until a few years ago, the Caribbean had one of the largest brothels in the world. In the Caribbean also, there is an issue with smugglers, migrant smuggling, because over 80 to 100,000 persons travel through the Caribbean on any given year. And also one of the challenges we have is that the Caribbean has a very low apprehension rate, meaning that about 3.5% only 3.5% of all human trafficking cases are ever apprehended. Okay, what we also found out through our study within the whole issue of drug smuggling comes and human trafficking comes with a myriad of other types of crime. And from our investigation, we found that there were 13 different subcrime that accompany human trafficking. It is drug smuggling, it is the firearms trafficking, human trafficking, pornography in general, but specifically child pornography. We also have the issue of kidnapping, extortion, money laundering, corruption, murder for hire, contraband, especially for petrol is big, and also smuggling smuggling of migrants, and drugs for food, drugs for rice, drugs for fish, etc. So the Caribbean, as I said, the Caribbean has a lot of challenges, and what is happening is that the Caribbean is becoming one of the human trafficking and migrant smuggling is becoming one of the fastest growing industries in the region, especially in the territories of Venezuela, I say Trinidad, Tobago, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, Guyana, and Colombia. And from our research, the industry has an estimated, the industry employs approximately 176,000 persons, impacting 11 economic sectors. Venezuela and Trinidad, they are the main epicenter for human trafficking, whereas Haiti and Venezuela is the main epicenter for migrant smuggling. What we found in our research, the industry directly impact 8 countries, okay? And what is on the increase now is the smuggling of human smuggling, the human trafficking activities in between the countries of Venezuela, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and Grenada. And from our research, we found out that there were 10 human trafficking routes within the Caribbean region. Okay, so there are a lot of challenges. We also realize that the country that is most impacted by human trafficking is Venezuela. In fact, 35% of the Venezuelan population is directly impacted by human trafficking. 8 Venezuelan states are directly impacted. And as a result of the demand, okay, of the situation, the political and economic situation in Venezuela, it becomes very easy for these nationals to be smuggled and ill-treated in another country. From our data, the state of Sucros is the epicenter of human trafficking in the Caribbean. Because of 60% of all human trafficking victims in Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean comes directly from that state of Sucre in Venezuela. So we see that what makes the human trafficking situation very challenging is that when the smugglers, when the victims enter a country, the gangs tend to follow them. And that makes the situation very, very, very challenging. No one country can really adequately have the resources to combat human trafficking. And what has happened is that because of that, the borders are very, very, very are porous, and we believe that if nothing is done about it, very soon the Caribbean, the human trafficking, human smuggling, drug smuggling will have what the Caribbean will feel the greatest impact, because what we have seen in based in October is that Venezuela is now into full-scale cocaine production, which will definitely affect the rest of the Caribbean region. Okay, so what I would like to say is that our research was based on research conducted by CARICOM. We also was a research conducted by Data when we conducted a study organized by the Caribbean Court of Justice, and we also conducted a study when we were in Venezuela. We spent 6 months in Venezuela in 2020, and what we did is that we looked at all the routes, all the human trafficking routes in Venezuela, and that is where we get the data from. So I will stop here, and if we need to ask any questions, I will be able to answer them.
So yes, so let's just go over, Dr. Pierre. So the top 9, you said, so Venezuela for the Caribbean region, Haiti, Dominican Republic,
yes,
Trinidad and Tobago,
yes,
and some, we like to repeat so people can really
yes,
get
right. So they are. Ghana is also affected. We have Barbados also is affected. The human trafficking activities in Grenada, because it's very interesting, because in Grenada, Grenada is in the middle of a drug smuggling, the Southern Triangle on the 13-degree latitude. There are a lot of smuggling activities because of the impact of the Vincentian marijuana trade, and as a result, it encompasses human trafficking, drug smuggling. It all comes as a package.
And then we also have Colombia.
Yes.
And you did mention so there's an uptick that we need to be aware that there is an uptick in Barbados,
yes,
uptick in St. Vincent and Grenadines, and Grenada. So,
yes,
and in case you didn't hear, Antigua and Barbuda.
yes.
So we're all in this together, and we need to, because a lot of times we'll hear people say, well, this is here in this country. So and we're so blessed that you were able to do this study and bring us back this information. Unless we have any question, let's just, so the cause, let's kind of, and for time's sake, in the cause of human trafficking, what does your study say, like, what's maybe the top 5 of this?
Right. Okay, yeah, good. Very good question. So one of the causes of human trafficking is related to economics, okay, the lack of the economic situation in these countries. Also the lack of resources. Okay. However, what we have seen that the issue of pornography, okay, human trafficking in pornography with kids, that has increased a lot in the Caribbean. Okay, so we have, for example, when we did the study, we looked at For example, we looked at the routes, okay? We looked, well, when you did the CARICOM study, we were fortunate enough to get the data of all the arrests and investigation of human traffickers, all the countries within the region. For a small region, there were about 2,362 investigations. There were 190 prosecutions. There were 70 convictions, okay? And it means that there was a conviction rate of 2.97, so which is very low compared to other parts of the world. So for example, globally, we have a 7.09 conviction rate. In the Caribbean, we have a 2.97 conviction rate. So it is the human trafficking, drug smuggle, these activities is almost a perfect crime because the smugglers know that they will never be caught. It's similar. They will. It's very, very, very difficult that anyone will charge them. But what we have seen also in the sense of smugglers, okay, drug smugglers, the people who buy sex, that has been on the increase in the Caribbean. We have persons from North America who come down to the Caribbean for the main purpose of having sexual relations with minors. And that is a huge challenge we see that is on the increase in the Caribbean region. And from our data, what we have been able to do is to develop a type of profile of the persons who come down to the region for that. But also you have to understand that within the Caribbean region has one of the highest rates in the world of persons who, as a percentage, that is persons who perpetrate violence against women in the Caribbean region. In fact, for the top 11 countries that have the most rape per population, 5 of those countries are in the Caribbean. And in the top 31 countries of persons with the highest rape per population by country, 15 of those countries are in the Caribbean region. So it gives rise to the culture of violence against women, and that could be a reason why the apprehension rate is so low.
So
I will stop now.
Pretty much, you're telling us, Dr. Pierre, that it's become a big business.
Yes, it is a business. Actually, it is a very very successful business. Okay, so what we have done, so for example, what we have done, we have got, when we met with most of the immigration officers or immigration in the country, so we wanted to develop a profile of who is a profile of a sexual predator, because we conducted the study on the predatory behavior of so who is a predator? What's the characteristics of a predator? Because most human trafficking deals with the victims. Right. But we said, well, let's look at it from a different perspective. So what we found out that, we developed a profile. So in my discussion with the U.S. State Department, we went in detail with how we went about with our methodology in terms of find out what profile. So we got the data from the immigration documents. So when a person comes into your country, we also got data from organized persons in the human trafficking business, and we came up with a profile. So a person who would be a sexual predator in general would be a white male between the ages of 45 and 75. This person will own real estate, either they own real estate in the Caribbean or in the home country. They have middle income or middle to high income. Most of them are in terms of the methodology, they tend to be high spenders. So heavy spenders, when they come to the country, they spend a lot. They generally will come from the countries like the Netherlands, Italy, France, Spain, the United Kingdom, Canada. We find that these persons are also family oriented, but 37.3% are married, because what we also do, we conducted a survey of 341 human traffickers and predators. So we got that data from them. They tend to have, they have short visits, no more than 3 to 4 nights. So when they come to the region, they come for a specific purpose to fulfill their sexual fantasies. They will stay about 3 to 4 nights. They visit the region between either on Wednesday nights or between Wednesday or Friday. That time, the most time they visit. Okay, I'm not saying that every person who visits the region for that period, but that's from our data. They normally leave the region either on Sundays or Mondays, but most times on Sundays from the immigration data. The arrangement, what we know for sure, is arrangements are made in advance of the encounter. So they are always working with someone in the country to arrange for their encounters. Okay, the victims that they see normally enter the country by sea. Okay, they conduct activities in private homes, Airbnb, or on yachts. Okay, as I said before, some of them have private homes in the country. We also found that mostly businessmen or professionals or retired person. Okay, and what we also found out that some of these predators are ethnic specific in terms of the preference for victims. So for example, based on your culture, based on your ethnicity, you would prefer a specific victim. So let's say, for example, a person from the Netherlands or from Italy or France would prefer Black people or slim person from Haiti, a victim from Haiti or from Dominican Republic, whereas other persons may prefer persons from other ethnic background. So this is what we found from our investigation of these sexual predators, and so I'll stop here and ask some questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions yet? We can open it up before I introduce our other.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Herb. How you doing, Doc?
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to say the last segment we just had was on AI and cyber, right?
Yes.
So if we are talking about tracking and tracing these individuals, they should be able to write the program to fit the profiles that you have developed. Yes. And AI should be able to track or trace every sex tourist who wants to come into the Caribbean to, satisfy themselves. Is there anything in the works concerning that?
Well, yes, actually, last month I did a training with an organization called Bellingcat, okay, in terms of AI, so BELLINGCAT. So they involved in cyber. We look at chronospatial data, geospatial data. We all had the idea of looking at the video and trying to trace the origin of the video and everyone who saw that, looked at that video. So let's say you see a video of someone is being abused. You can take that video, run it through a program, and you could look at every single person who have seen that video. So the technology is getting, but what we have seen in terms of the region, in terms of the resources, it is they do not have that resources. So what, for example, what we have done is that we have taken down these profilers, because what we find that they are very, very open, okay, because of they're confident, because they know that they cannot be caught. So what we have done, we have found out, we have developed about 11 characteristics of persons who from our database of what we did is that we collected crime. We had a data on crime. We collected close to 900 or close to 198 million data sets. So we analyzed those 901 data, all the crimes in the region. So for example, offenses against a person, murder, manslaughter, larceny, treason, white-collar crimes, sexual offenses, drugs, all the crime, firearms, trafficking in person, all the crime in the region, in the 38 countries. We found out that there were, over the last 5 years, there was 198 million crimes and investigation. And what we have found out, so we broke down the sexual predators, part of it. And we found out that there were approximately, so there, right, okay, so we looked, we found out that white males, okay, these are the anomaly, the persons who are most likely from our data to prey on victims in terms of human trafficking. So white male, a bus conductor, a bus driver, a taxi driver, a religious leader, someone on trust in the community, okay, law enforcement, private officers, I mean, that's a form, fisherman or farmer, boat operator, a club owner, or a restaurant owner. So these are the persons we found from our database. We found that that have committed the most violence against children. And what we have done is that we have broken up from the data, we have broken up these crimes based on areas of pedophilias, hemophilias, and e-hemophilias. So for example, most white men coming into the country, they tend to be pedophilias, that is having sexual relations with children under 13, or hemophilias, having sexual relationship between children between 11 and 14 years. So we see, for example, bus conductors, they run the spectrum, meaning pedophilias, hemophilias, and e-hemophilias, meaning that they have, so bus conductors have children with young children, for example, school children. We also interviewed someone, a police officer actually, who had impregnated, a 24-year-old person, who have impregnated, okay, 27 women, children, girls under the age of 15. So that's to see the extent of this type of problem in the Caribbean region.
Okay. Now, is it that the authorities are not able, once the people are identified, to set up sting operations and to execute these operations in catching these pedophilias that come into the various islands? Are they short on resources? Is this a problem that CARICOM impacts or CARICOM Secretariat is aware of? And because you did do the research for them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so they have the lack of resources. So that lack of resources, and one of the main areas of lack of resources. So for example, so the Canadian government had engaged us, and what we've done through the discussion with the Canadian consulate in Trinidad and Tobago, they were under our discussions, they were able to get the Canadian Coast Guard to come into Trinidad and help the Trinidad and Tobago Police Force, to the Coast Guard, to see if they can find a way to mitigate this problem. So that has, there has been a lot of it has gone well, okay, but however, it's not enough. It has to be consistent. We also want one of the recommendations is that we want to get what is called an OPP, which is called an Ocean Patrol vehicle, to be out there to monitor traffic to come in. And in our discussion with the with the U.S. State Department, from our data, we found out that, for example, some Grenadian fishermen are being harassed or threatened to use drugs, to put drugs on the boat. And so we had informed the State Department, and the State Department had made a recommendation that we should inform the Grenadian government that if they needed help. So in my discussion when I went to Grenada in May, I had a meeting with the authorities and to tell them that if they need that type of assistance, the U.S. government will be prepared to give that assistance. And I think that they are now in the process of engaging with the U.S. government. So this is, as I said, we still have to thank the U.S. government, because without the U.S. government, I mean, we still would be in this problem.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Dr. Pierre, thank you so much. We're going to, we've got a couple guests, and let me just do a quick intro. Attorney Jonathan Bagan. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Jonathan. Attorney at law. I founded something called the Operation Global Sex Offenders Registry in 2020. I'm right now chairman of the Caribbean Committee Against Sex Crimes. That was founded by a St. Lucian, Camille St. Omer, in 2015. And then she had her kids and went and did her PhD. So, she handed it over to me. On Herb's other point about AI and trying to track these predators, my project with the Global Sex Offenders Registry, we have been trying to do that. Well, we've been offering it to CARICOM and to mainly the government of Trinidad. I offered it to some politicians in Jamaica as well. I won't call names, but well, the person, it was receptive, but she pointed out that she didn't want Jamaica to be any more dependent on the United States. But essentially, basically, the US has a law called the International Migrants Law, where they have a database of all of their sex offenders flying, entering our region and other countries, and they send emails when a sex offender enters. There's a piece of software produced by Offender Watch that can, so you put the app on your child's phone and on your phone. If a registered sex offender messages your child on Snapchat, text messages them, calls them on the phone, or if your child's phone goes to the wrong GPS coordinate of a sex offender's house, you will get a notification. So when I saw that, I realized that that kind of technology, if it's proper, we invest in it, we implement it in the Caribbean. And as Dr. Pierre pointed out, a lot of these predators coming in for test sex tourism are middle-aged, older white men with money. So not all of them will be sex offenders, because only the smallest, like I think only 2% of rapists ever, according to US data, only 2% of rapists ever spend time in jail, because most survivors of sex crimes don't report it out of stress and fear, etc. But using artificial intelligence, as Herb pointed out before, it is possible. There's a doctor, a professor who's in the police service in Brazil named Dr. Requião de Cunha. He has a paper where he uses math to map how criminal networks work on the internet and on the dark web to share child pornography. So using that sort of mathematics and giving it over to an AI, once we get a lot of information about sex offenders, we should be able to start. And of course, we know from Dr. Pierre's work that the demographic tends to be Caucasian male, certain age. We can start to red flag people and monitor them coming in, and it helps law enforcement. But there needs to be willpower on the part of Trinidad. Herbert and I discussed talking to the United States government to make this official US policy towards the Caribbean. So we are seeing where that goes. Any questions?
I remember last year, Jonathan, you talked about an app. How is that going for you? Were you involved in an app?
Oh no, I didn't make the app. The app exists and it belongs to a United States company. You can get it right now in the US if you want it. You just go on offenderwatch.com or go on the App Store for the Offenderwatch app. It gives you a list of all the offenders in your area, and you put it on your child's phone. It's $9 US per year. It will do all the features I said. Message from Snapchat from a registered offender. It intercepts that, GPS tracking, all those things. So it exists already. It's not new technology. It's just to bring it over into the Caribbean. It's such hassle because we have a lot of infrastructure, like physical infrastructure. It's the government and the laws and the police that need to implement it. So well, there's that aspect of it. And I know from on the topic of trafficking, the sex offender registry, it overlaps with trafficking, but not every sex offender is a human trafficker. But I know from Dr. Pierre's work that Trinidad is one of the few areas where most of the human trafficking is from local demand for sex. So our local politicians, police officers, and businessmen buy sex, mainly of Venezuelan refugees coming over. Sometimes of local girls, sometimes Cubans, and very rarely Haitians and Nigerians, but mainly Venezuelans.
All right, thank you. Can you just tell us the name of that app so we can write it down?
I'll put the link. I'll pull up the link in the chat.
Okay, great.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Yes, maybe after you can, you should really get in contact with me, because I think that we are getting some funding from one of the organization that will in that kind of work. And what we like to do is kind of distribute the funding to some of our local partners like yourself, so that we can kind of develop this in the region.
Thank you very much. Well, we talk all the time, Dr. Pierre. So
yes, and you should also go on our portal, which is dppglobal.net,
and register.
Yeah, it's called dppglobal.net, and because again, the government and stuff is very involved in it in terms of collecting data, because we collect so much of data of because we have, as I said, most of the yellow pages and white pages in the Caribbean. We already have that in our database. So it's a very easy segue into collecting not only open source data, but data via Google Earth. So we can have more precise sing-sang geospatial and chronospatial data on the movements of people. Okay, so I think that, and someone from one of the universities in Toronto, in Canada, is also helping us get that kind of technology to commercially, so that we can give it to our counterparts.
Yes, and that once you have a lot of data, then you can use the artificial intelligence and the different, mathematical models to predict things. So, yes. Any questions, Lorna?
Yeah, I just listening to you, I'm wondering if we use a state approach, if we could get state by state to be interested in getting that program that you mentioned. And, based on our Attorney General's report, our sex trafficking has increased, relating to Dr. Pierre's status report, talking about the age group of the children. We have found that over the last year, when the report came out in January for last year, that our human trafficking, our sex trafficking had increased, the numbers of people had increased, and the age group had been reduced. So there are younger kids that are being trafficked. And I just wonder if there was any hope that if we could start putting some pressure on the states to look at that program, if that could possibly help become more global for the United States to recognize that they need to do something.
Yeah, I've tried, Lorna. I've approached different countries, and I've approached the CARICOM body several times. Well, during COVID, of course, there were other priorities like, you know, avoiding the virus for the last 2 years, and then now, but there needs to be, well, if you have contacts in the various governments and you have a attorney general or prime minister who actually cares about this sort of work, then feel free to share the contact. I will call them. So, and I agree, we need to approach these different countries one by one as well.
Right. Yeah, and it's also, it's just, well, first of all, we have to understand our region is very unique because we, sex trafficking, human trafficking is not a priority. So like murder, because remember, because we're in a region where the from our data, the largest, the highest, so for example, the highest number of investigations, okay, it was in drugs, okay? So for example, from the 198 investigations in the region, the last 5 years, 198 million, 63 million was in drugs and drug-related offenses. So drugs is a main, the main concern and drug reduction in the Caribbean region, not sex offenders. It's just very, it's just very small. That's why so many sexual predators go free, because many sexual predators are never caught. Most human trafficking have no criminal record, and that's why we have been seeing that over and over and over during the study. So it's a lack of resources.
You know, it takes me back again, Doc. If we have AI involved, let me tell you how good AI is. From the military, when we were tracking Bin Laden and his son and all these other Al-Qaeda figures, we could put their picture in the nose cone of a drone or, you know, a missile. And if we fired that missile, or if we had that drone going around searching, right, it would be overhead. It could search through traffic. It could search through neighborhoods, right? The minute it identifies the person, and you could be wearing a beard or what have you, the sensor picks up and validates your identification. It's all over.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So you don't have to have man on board or woman standing up screening people. You just need to have like you have drones on patrol. They're looking out. They can look out for people stealing cattle and pigs and goats and stuff. They can be searching the face trace, face recognition, facial recognition. All right, since it is white males, they have been normed for facial recognition. Black males have not. You know, there's a lot of errors with black males, but white males, you can put them in that system, and that system will recognize and pick them up.
Yes.
Right now, as far as I'm concerned, I would put the faces in and have the drone technology go across the beaches in all these Caribbean islands, or you know, the different roads. You don't have a whole lot of roads to cover,
Right.
And that thing can get around, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. And one of the challenges is the enforcement. Persons who, you know, some of these, the legislation, the will of the people, most of the authorities don't have the will, they don't have the resources, don't have the technology to get an AI, a drone, cost resources. Most of these, look at some, even the police stations, look at the physical facilities. These things are just almost non-existent. And what Like, so for example, so what we are trying to do, okay, what we are trying to do is to do it on our own, okay? Because we know that the police will never do it. So on association with Bellingcat and other organization, what we can do is to develop a hub or portal or whatever, and public shaming and doing these things on our own, finding them out for ourselves, and informing the police or informing the US State Department, informing the Canadian government or whatever, who will take action. Because we know, for example, that most of the local governments may not take action. They only take action when they are pressured by either the US government or to take action. And we see that in the human trafficking report. There are human trafficking everywhere for years, and nobody did anything until the US government came in and said, hey, this is the problem in the Caribbean. If you do not do something, we will sanction you. And that's how it's a big deal.
Okay.
Before we introduce our next panelist, Ms. Eugenie Montpremier, I just want to read. We had another guest that was supposed to come on this afternoon, and she had an emergency. She works in the human trafficking. Her name is Rahana Ramprasad, and she's the vice president of Mentari USA. She said she got involved in the combating against human trafficking because she deeply believed that it's wrong and it's not a human right. She says, we are all here today as global citizens working together to prevent human trafficking. At the same time, we must also continue to work with and for the victims of human trafficking so that they can realize their human rights of free living. And she says she apologizes for not being on Zoom, but she does have an emergency. And as we bring on Miss Eugenie Montpremier, we know that this is happening every day throughout the day. So now we have victims. In the meantime, yes, we're going to figure out who's to get involved and who's not getting involved. But every single day, this is happening, and lives are being affected. Children and adults are being hurt. So now we've got to go into and address, how do you get hope? How does someone recover and heal that hole in the soul and have hope for life after being entrusted into human trafficking? So let's hear from Miss Eugenie Montpremier, whose heritage, and actually I was supposed to say the heritage, Attorney Jonathan Bagan heritage is Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Justine Pierre heritage is Grenada. And of course, Miss Eugenie's heritage is Haiti. So give us a snippet about you, and then on that angle, I think that's your line of work is healing.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eugenie Montpremier Chaplain, and also the CEO and owner of From Charcoal to Diamond, Inc. When you see the word charcoal and you go to Diamond, you realize exactly what it is. We are there to educate, elevate, and help those who are suffering. And I heard a lot of things talking before I said would answer your questions. Like Dr. Pierre was talking, and like Mr. Nelson was talking about AI. How are you gonna deal with a country, for example, when the gang is the one who has what we call their own AI? They can go and say, you know what, today no judge is going to the office, everybody stay away because their AI is watching you. And before we talk about those things, and right now my heart is bleeding every time I think about Haiti, because I have some people I work with in Haiti, and the situation is so bad right now. They told me, do not mention our organizations, do not mention our name. And when I was listening to Dr. Pierre as well, even on Dr. Pierre breakdown, you can see Haiti mentioned, but what do we have? What do we know about Haiti? When we have a guns trafficking over there, when you have human trafficking, child sexual abuse, rape every single day, gang are killing people. I think we know gangs everywhere. But let it be like that. How do we ask someone who was raped? How you approach that person? I end up going to take classes on mental health for the youth. So for me to deal with the kids in the United States, and I end up helping other people back home as well. How you sit down and listen to a child, a 7 or 8 year old, telling you he or she was raped by old men, 35, 40 something years old. A woman raped. How do we deal with that? How do we help those people to cope? And as Christians, I believe in the power of prayer. I believe also God can heal, but I believe to have people in place to help those people. We have to have mental health people to help them, because right now, and I was talking to my prefect, a lawyer, Jonathan, and I was telling him, okay, we'll survive. But after that, how are you gonna survive when you have a generations where most of those young girls were raped by men? Those people don't kill themselves. What kind of generations you're gonna have? To deal with that, we need to have people in mental health. We need to have everyone working with us. And when I heard Dr. Pierre talking, I know CARICOM is right there. And I'm saying it widely because I'm saying bluntly. Why so much silence about Haiti? Why? Why our neighbors are so silent about what the situation we are in? Why? And we talk about human trafficking. We talk about those who are being abused. We talk about those women right now. They traffic our kids everywhere. Santo Domingo, they sell them. They sell them to Venezuela. They sell them everywhere. Wherever they want, like they are cattle. People stay quiet. I wish I have somebody who represents CARICOM to answer that question, not to me, to the Haitian people, to the community, to tell us we are right in the Caribbean. We shall seize with all of you. Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Santo Domingo, you name it. Why, when it comes even to human trafficking, we can have a good numbers about us. We have people in Haiti who speak English as well, because it's better for someone outside to get to Haiti to get, the proper data than myself. Right now we have people who are in Haiti who cannot get the data. But if Dr. Pierre, if CARICOM enter to Haiti, yes, they can get the data. The only thing we can do, Sister Dana, put program in place. We need lawyer like Jonathan. We need mental health people. We need people who cares, who don't see Haiti, who see human being, who's gonna say, we're gonna go over there, we have to do something about it. Because when you say silence, you let the people know you can kill everyone. Because I'm asking the questions again, why our neighbors, they are so silent about what's going on in Haiti? And don't tell me, if I heard the news, but this is not what I would like to hear. I would like to hear the people from CARICOM talking about Haiti. I would like people from Africa talking about Haiti. I would like to hear the world talking about Haiti. But the way we can deal with that right now, prayer, and get people to help those people. And remember, the causes we have right now is guns. I'm going to add it. It's child sexual abuse, drug trafficking, economicals. And people said, oh, you are the poorest country in the world. I'm not going to touch that. If you do your research, you're going to see we're not the poorest country in the world the way they said it. But this is something other subject. And we need to have everyone to be with us, because I have a friend, I don't want to say her name, was an organization. She just came from Haiti. And we need help. We need help. Mental people, mental health leaders. I don't care if you don't speak Creole, we have people who will translate for you, because you have people speak Spanish over there. They speak English, they will translate, but we need your help. And we need to help those young people who are hurting. And Dana, one day I will tell you exactly which organization to get in touch with. The only things we can do is help them spiritually and mentally.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Montpremier, for that. You know, this becomes a cycle, because we know that hurt people then hurt people. And so this situation is just going to magnify it, you know, if we don't address it properly. And we are seeing that it's not being addressed properly. So we are, from this forum, we're understanding that there is a high demand, a very high demand for this in all the different areas. But then we have low support, we have a lack of support from law enforcement in regards to transformation or intelligence or security. We have lack of support in resources and regulation. We have high corruption and low awareness. So we can see that, yes, we may not have, or we may not know what CARICOM is doing, or we may not know what the government individually are doing, but still this tragedy is still increasing. And now our younger children are even, you know, caught up in this. Also, what we should also let people know that the families are now involved in human trafficking. And this is not just from, you know, stranger danger. Now families, because of the promises that they get from a human trafficker, the promises of employment, promises of love, promises for a better life, promises for a job, those are the keys, the points that usually someone will get caught up, and, you know, of course, just kidnapping or smuggling. But a lot of times people are just looking for, especially young people, are just looking for a better life and a better job somewhere, and they'll answer an ad, right? Or someone that pretends to be interested in them. So people sometimes fall victim to this. So that's the awareness that we need to get out, of being extra careful. You know, maybe even having the family members to have the phone tracking system. So if one person goes missing, then there's something on the phone that can track you at least. Because right now the support from law enforcement is not there. So we just should probably, you know, just let that be known. So it's going to be a community involvement, right? You know, low awareness at the immigration, at the borders, but high demand. So that's what we're facing. High and increasing demand and low support. So it's a community effort, bringing awareness, being careful with social media. Last year we talked about how your TikToks and your, you know, different points where kids, you know, perpetrators can just easily get to children. So we as parents, you know, we've got to be, you know, on the advocate role, teachers. And then we see also that sometimes the very people that we're going to are part of the problem. As Dr. Pierre mentioned, he mentioned professionals, law enforcement, religious individuals. So who are you supposed to trust? So this is a delicate case, but each child is important. And I think we definitely have to keep that awareness going in our communities, and so that what is a human trafficking case look like? Because you know how sometimes we say, what is an abusive, and we can say, well, if that man or woman is hitting you or keeping you away from family or friends, that's a sign. So we need to bring more awareness of what does human trafficking look like. Is there anyone want to address that? Because I know it sometimes can be, yes, the promises, and people come, you know, they come and then their passport are taken away and they're forced into all type of situations. And of course, yeah, a lot of times they're not going to mention, they're not going to talk about it. And sometimes it's too late to talk about it, because once you're taken and violated, you know.
But I thought part of what we're talking about was, how do we go about helping the victims? And, you know, every organization, every individual that gets involved in human trafficking, in terms of providing awareness to human trafficking, should also be aware of some of the things that the victims will need once they're rescued. And that is that understanding of the strife and tribulations that they endured, how to actually talk with, deal with that person who is now really and truly a different individual from they were before. So it is to bringing in that empathy and sympathy, recognizing that that person needs actual constructive things in order to heal. So those are the things that we need to make sure that we're also incorporating. When we talk about awareness, yes, we get the community aware, but then if we don't put things in place to help with the healing, whether it's to get more counselors involved, because the wrong person can say the wrong thing. And so instead of helping that person to heal, they're actually traumatizing that person. But to get trained professionals. So we should also be reaching out to our leaders to get things in place to provide that healing, and then to put that person back to constructive work, whether it's schoolwork or employment or something to help take their minds off some of that trauma. I mean, it can be forced, or maybe not as, and I'll use the word full-time for want of a better way of expressing it, but to actually have them be concretely engaged in something. And so it's very important for us to get that healing bit in place.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I should say, and Lorna, you didn't tell us a little snippet about you, Lorna Shelton, Heritage Jamaica. Please give us a snippet about you.
So I'm Lorna Shelton Beck. I'm from Jamaica. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I have a nonprofit organization called Healthy Lifestyle Network. And one of the things that we do is that we help to bring awareness to childhood sexual abuse and human trafficking. And we work in Charleston, South Carolina, and in Port Antonio, Jamaica. We have the Shelton Project, and we work with the primary schools. You know, that's the tender age where all these old men that you talk about are trying to reach these kids. So we try to educate them and bring awareness to them. And yes, Donna, you mentioned earlier that sometimes these parents are involved, and it's not just that these kids are sold to outsiders, but sometimes that same violation takes place within the home, among parents, among neighbors. You know, we had a situation last year, earlier this year, of the woman left her 7-year-old with the neighbor, only to come back and the 7-year-old had been violated by the neighbor, a grown man. And so it's also trying to educate parents to be more aware and to be more cautious, protective. And so that's just a little bit of what we do, trying to work with parents to bring them to their kids, boys and girls.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Last comments from everyone?
Yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate what Lorna has just said, is that that in fact, from my experience, kind of, you know, speaking to human traffickers, interviewing human traffickers, speaking to victims. I mean, I'm not a legislator or anything like that, but if I had a way to advise the regional governments, is that we should teach the subject in school, the awareness of human trafficking, because people do not know what is a human trafficker, how you could be. Human trafficking is a subject based on vulnerability. So you must be vulnerable in order for you to be trafficked. And people are not aware of it. So I think it should be taught in the primary, secondary school, in the churches, in the community. And they should be more publicized, because persons are saying that is not in my community. People believe, oh, it's just like out there, but it's not in my community. And again, the whole issue of people feel ashamed if they're violated, and they're victimized, because if someone has been trafficked and they go to a school, the school children will say, oh, well, she has been whatever, and they discriminate against her. So we think that more information and more public resources should be there to solve that problem.
Great, thank you. And we're gonna again list the names in case you missed our top 9 Caribbean countries: Venezuela, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, Guyana, Colombia, and just to note, an increase in the country of Barbados, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and Grenada.
Yes, and we also want to note Bahamas. Bahamas is very, very key, okay? And we want to say that why Bahamas is key, because some of these persons are, the girls will come from Haiti and into their brothels and stuff in the Bahamas, and the predators, okay, will meet them in the Bahamas. And that has been very, very unfortunate. You know, we Niker and some of these other guys, the guy who died. So we know that the Bahamas is you know, for the higher class predators, but Bahamas is also one that we should consider, because in our report we visited all the countries in the study. Thank you.
And I would like to add, it's not only the old men who are involved in trafficking, the young people as well. They use them so they can act like they are your boyfriend, and they are part of it as well. And therefore we need to not only educate our young people, and we're doing that. Not only that, but for them to know it's not only the old men. If you have a child who's 15 or 17-year-old, he can be a trafficker as well. He has a boss he's working with. This is the only thing I will let the people with. Thank you.
Yes. And again, I believe that awareness begins in the school. Just like we identify what a domestic violence home look like, we need to start bringing this awareness in our communities, so that child can go, this behavior sounds similar to what I've been hearing about. And at least they can at least have that red flags, and their intuition can, be more alert. So that is it for our segment of human trafficking in the Caribbean region. And I want to thank you all. Before I turn it over to Mr. Herbert Nelson, I just want to say thank you again for listening and joining the conversation as we bring awareness and solutions to this very heavy topic. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Donna, and to all the panelists. I know earlier the professor stated that some of Jamaica's top killers were boys who were molested. So they are going around with a chip on their shoulders, and they want to settle all scores. Probably everybody they see or they kill as the face of their molester. So, there's no doubt in my mind that, there's something seriously wrong, and we need a lot more intervention than we are seeing currently happening on the island. For Haiti and every other island for that matter, because things are bad, Ms. Pomprier. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything. And at this point, we're going to be moving into a final segment of the day. It's a relief for me because I went to bed at 4 o'clock this morning. And I'm about ready to take off out of this chair, but I can't do that because a super team is coming up, and they're going to be putting some of this corruption out there. The corruption that causes crime reporting to be suppressed, corruption that creates the situation where there are a lot of untouchables. And I know that our resident FBI, former FBI agent, he has been studying this situation quite frequently and closely. We've been on several programs to discuss corruption, and I'm going to hand it over to him so that he can begin his introductions of the various panelists.
So, we are going to actually do a hard stop. So if you can just talk and chit chat in the meantime, we must do a hard stop and restart the taping.